at my granddaughter's senior night. The volunteer handed me a wristband with a red void stamp across my name. Across the track, Ivy stood in full marching band uniform, holding her trumpet and looking through the bleachers for me. Then my son stepped closer, looked at the clipboard, and said, "Mom, please don't make tonight about you." I stayed quiet. I did not beg. I only looked down at the correction tape on the family list and one receipt number Tara never expected me to recognize. Stay with me, because that little piece of paper was not the only thing they had taken from me. My name is Molly Cooper. I am 70 years old, and I live in Muncie, Indiana, about 15 minutes from the high school, where my granddaughter, Ivy, played trumpet in the marching band. I spent 34 years as the bookkeeper at Rains Music, so I knew school instrument invoices, rental tags, repair slips, and the excuses families gave when a bill embarrassed them. That was probably why I noticed the trumpet case before I noticed my son looking away. It sat near the check-in table. Black plastic scuffed white along the corners from bus rides and parking lot rehearsals. A tag was looped through the handle, and even under those stadium lights, I could read it. Lease Guarantor, Molly Cooper. I reached out and touched that tag with one finger. Tara saw me do it. Her smile stayed in place, but her eyes moved to the clipboard like she wished she could close the cover over the whole evening. Norman stood near the concession stand, hands in his jacket pockets, pretending the popcorn line needed studying. My son heard enough. I knew because his shoulders lifted once, the way they used to when he was a boy, and had broken something before I found it. I had not come there to make trouble. I had come to watch Ivy walk across the field, hear her name called, and give her the peppermint candies she liked before every performance. I had even brought the clear poncho she always forgot, because October in Indiana can turn cold between the anthem and halftime. Earlier that afternoon, Tara had texted me while I was at my kitchen table paying the electric bill. She said I did not need to bring anything because they had the family seat side handled. I remember reading it beside my coffee cup with my old tin box of money order stubs sitting near the napkin holder. I almost wrote back that I wanted to bring Ivy's jacket anyway. Instead, I set the phone down, opened the tin box, and looked at the receipts I had kept for 3 years. Uniform balance, trumpet repair, bus deposit, competition meal plan. Senior night package. Norman and Tara had first asked for help during Ivy's sophomore year. They came over on a Sunday afternoon, both of them quiet in that careful way people get when money has already walked into the room. Ivy's band fees were higher than expected, Tara said, and Norman added that they were only short until work picked up. I believed them. Ivy loved that band. She stood taller when that trumpet was in her hands, and I wanted her to have one thing that did not depend on grown people's money troubles. So I paid what I could, one piece at a time. $58 for uniform hemming, $140 for a dented bell repair, $300 for a trip deposit to Indianapolis. Sometimes I used a money order because that was how I had done things for decades at Rains Music. Clean, traceable, no confusion later. At first, Tara thanked me. She said Ivy was lucky to have a grandmother who understood music costs. Then the words changed. At a booster picnic in the school parking lot, I heard Tara tell another mother that she and Norman had handled Ivy's band career from the beginning. She said they, while I stood near the cooler filling paper cups with lemonade. Norman heard it too and twisted the cap on his water bottle until the plastic crackled. After that, the schedules stopped straight to me. Norman used to forward every performance time, every competition address, every note from Mr. Harlan. Then he started saying Tara was organizing all that now, and I could check with her. Maybe that sounds small. It did not feel small when it kept happening. At the check-in table that night, Tara leaned closer and lowered her voice just enough to sound gentle. She said these nights could get overwhelming, and they were trying to keep things simple for me. Would you have spoken up right there, with two booster mothers watching, or would you have waited until you understood what had been changed? I looked down at the clipboard again. There was correction tape over the line marked family package, thick and white, like somebody had tried to erase me with office supplies. Beneath the paper program beside it, the corner of a red booster ledger showed just enough for me to see a receipt number. I knew that number. It matched the stub folded inside my purse, and Tara had no idea I had brought it with me. The volunteer shifted behind the table and said the family wristbands had already been picked up by Tara Cooper. She sounded sorry. The two booster mothers went very still, both pretending to study the programs while their eyes slid back to me. Tara placed one hand on the basket of wristbands. Molly helped when she could, she said, voice smooth as glass. But tonight is for the parents who carried the season. Across the track, Ivy saw me. She lifted one hand, trumpet tucked under her arm, and started toward us before the drumline captain called her back. I heard her voice carry just enough over the field. Why isn't Grandma walking with us? Tara did not even turn around. She called back, Not now, Ivy. Keep your place. I stood there with Ivy's rain jacket folded over my arm and the peppermint candies in my coat pocket. The volunteer peeled the voided wristband from the sheet, and the sticky side clung to her finger before she set it aside. I watched Tara watching me. I wanted to say something. Then I saw Tara glance toward the booster mothers, waiting to see what kind of scene I might give her. So I thanked the volunteer, took one program, and walked toward the parking lot with my shoes crunching over gravel by the fence. The band was warming up when I reached my car. Trumpets broke into uneven notes, and the low drums rolled underneath. I sat behind the wheel with the door closed, Ivy's jacket on the passenger seat, and that useless wristband in my lap. For a minute, I only listened. The announcer tested the microphone. Somewhere behind me, boys laughed near an old pickup truck. The stadium lights made pale squares on my windshield. Then I opened my purse. So the small tin box was at the bottom, under tissues and an old church bulletin. It used to hold peppermints. Now it held receipts, folded money order stubs, and proof I had kept, mostly because old habits do not leave just because you retire. I found the Indianapolis trip deposit first. $300, paid in March, receipt number ending in 462, same number I had seen on the ledger corner under the senior night program. My hand steadied after I saw it. A knock came at my window. I looked up and saw Ruth McKenna under the edge of the carport light, one hand tucked in the pocket of her quilted vest. Ruth had been booster treasurer for years before her knees got bad, and if anybody in Muncie could find a missing receipt before coffee finished brewing, it was Ruth. She asked why I was sitting out there instead of lining up with Ivy. I rolled down the window and showed her the void stamp on the wristband. Then I opened the tin box on my lap. Ruth did not gasp or fuss. She put on the reading glasses hanging from a chain around her neck and studied the stub like she was back at a card table, counting raffle money after a pancake breakfast. Then she said, quiet and flat, that is not Tara's receipt. I followed her back toward the booster table near the concession stand. Tara was farther down the track, talking to another mother, with one hand on a bouquet wrapped in cellophane. Norman stood beside her, staring at the field. Ruth waited until the volunteer stepped away, then stopped with her fingers on the red ledger. She said she was not the current treasurer anymore, and technically she should not be opening records without someone else present. Then, she saw the correction tape over my name that settled it. She lifted the senior night program and pulled out the ledger. It was heavier than I expected, the cover soft at the corners from being handled all season. She opened it to the payment section and ran her finger down the lines. There I was, Molly Cooper, uniform balance, Molly Cooper, trumpet repair, Molly Cooper, Indianapolis trip deposit, Molly Cooper, senior night package, but my name had been crossed through in two places, and covered with correction tape in another. Beside the credit line, written in blue pen, were the words Tara and Norman Cooper, family sponsors. A yellow sticky note sat at the top of the page, curled at one edge. Do not call grandmother. Tara handling. I stared at those 6 words. They were not careless words. They were instructions. Ruth closed her mouth hard, the way practical women do when anger has to wait. She said booster credit did not transfer like that, not without a record. Then her finger moved lower and stopped near a reimbursement entry from the canceled Indianapolis overnight trip. She tapped it once. This says a refund was issued, she said, but if you made the original deposit, that line needs checking before Ivy gets called. She slid the ledger under her arm and nodded toward the band office behind the bleachers. Come on, Molly. The receipt binder is inside. The band office was narrow, with instrument lockers on one wall and old drill charts stacked on a metal shelf. It smelled like brass polish, damp grass, and paper handled by too many teenagers. Ruth set the ledger on Mr. Harlan's desk and pulled a thick binder from the bottom drawer. She paused before opening it. Then she looked back toward the field, where the seniors were already forming by the track. There was not time to let a wrong record become a public one. I laid my money order stubs beside the binder. Ruth read the numbers softly, one at a time, and matched them to the original entries. Uniform balance, trumpet repair, Indianapolis deposit, senior night package. My name was in the old receipt column every time. Mr. Harlan came in with his headset around his neck and a clipboard under one arm. He looked like a man holding 3 emergencies in 2 hands. Ruth told him we needed Rain's music records, and his face changed when he saw me. He opened Ivy's instrument folder and turned it around. The invoice was printed in black ink. Trumpet repair, rental insurance, and lease guarantor, Molly Cooper. I touched that line with my finger. Seeing my name there steadied me more than I expected. Then Ruth found the reimbursement envelope. It was tucked behind the Indianapolis trip section, sealed but not mailed, with a copy of the canceled overnight notice stapled to the front. The refund line shows $640 issued to Tara Cooper. Ruth looked from the envelope to my stub. That deposit came from you, she said. Mr. Harlan took off his headset and rubbed his forehead. Outside, the drumline started the cadence for halftime. The floor seemed to tremble lightly under our shoes. I understood then that Tara had not only let people believe she carried the season, she had taken back money from a payment I made and let my name disappear under correction tape. We stepped back toward the field as the seniors lined up near the track. Tara was already in the family line with Norman beside her, holding flowers wrapped in shiny cellophane. She looked ready, hair pinned smooth, coat buttoned, one hand resting on Norman's arm as if she had arranged him too. Ivy stood a few places down, trumpet at her side, eyes moving over the crowd. When she saw me with Ruth and Mr. Harlan, her face tightened. The announcer called the first senior. A girl with a clarinet crossed the field with her parents while people clapped from the cold metal bleachers. Then another name. Then another. Before Ivy's turn, Ruth walked straight to the small announcer table near the 50-yard line. She set the red ledger down beside the microphone and said the booster record needed a correction before the next student was announced. Tara's smile held for 1 second too long. Then she came over quickly, lowering her voice while still letting the nearby booster mothers hear. She said it was a misunderstanding. She said school paperwork could overwhelm me sometimes, and she had only been trying to keep things simple. I looked at Norman. This time he did not look away fast enough. Ruth opened the ledger to the payment page. Mr. Harlan placed the Rain's music invoice beside it. I took my money order stubs from my coat pocket and set them down one by one, the paper soft from being folded. Tara said I had given freely. She said family helped family, and nobody had done anything wrong. Ruth slid the reimbursement copy forward. Then explain why the Indianapolis refund went to you when Molly paid the deposit, she said. The noise around us seemed to drop back. The crowd was still there. The band was still waiting. But at that little table, with flowers in Tara's hand and Ivy's name next on the program, nobody moved. Tara looked at Norman first, not at me. At him, Norman swallowed hard. His face had gone pale under the stadium lights. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, but clear enough for the people closest to hear. He said he knew I had paid for a lot of it. He said Tara told him she was handling the public side, and he let her. That was the whole thing, really. I did not raise my voice. I looked at Tara, then at my son, and said, I did not come to take your place. I came because you spent 3 years taking mine. Ivy covered her mouth with one hand. Mr. Harlan quietly asked the announcer to pause the recognition. Ruth closed the ledger but kept her palm on top of it. Senior night continued after a few minutes. Ivy walked with Norman on one side and me on the other. Tara stood back near the track fence, still holding the flowers. People clapped when Ivy's name was called. I barely heard them. I remember Ivy slipping her cold hand into mine, and the soft click of trumpet valves against her glove. The consequences were not dramatic. They were uncomfortable, which is sometimes harder for people like Tara. It took 3 booster emails and 1 meeting in the band room, with folding chairs pulled into a crooked circle. Tara was removed from the finance and hospitality tables. The $640 came back by check, folded inside an envelope with no note, and the senior night record was corrected. Norman came to my house 2 Sundays later. He apologized at my kitchen table with both hands wrapped around a coffee mug he never drank from. I told him I loved him, but I would not go back to being useful in private and invisible in public. From then on, anything I gave for Ivy went straight through the booster treasurer or the school account. Not through Norman, not through Tara. That was not punishment. That was how I kept from being used twice. Ivy came by the next week with her trumpet case. She set it on my kitchen chair and told me she had seen my on the tag for years, but never understood why her mother always changed the subject when she asked about it. I did not tell her. Tara was a bad person. I told her grown-ups can be scared, proud, and wrong at the same time. But when someone uses love as cover, they still have to answer for what they did. These days, I spend Wednesday afternoons in the band room helping sort old sheet music. The kids call me Mrs. Cooper, and sometimes Ivy practices in the corner while I file yellowed pages into folders. The room smells like brass polish and dust, and when her trumpet rises above the rustle of paper, I feel steady ascend. Have you ever had to keep loving someone while finally refusing to be used by them? I still show up for Ivy. I just no longer disappear to make it easier for everyone else. If this story stayed with you, stay with the channel for more stories about dignity, family, and finding your way back to yourself.